Hello, everyone. I'm Camille, your host for Creative Communications TV series, a show created to allow people to communicate their stories and own their creative way. Our first episode is with very special guests, of course. Just for you guys, we will be seated with an amazing and prosperous woman, financial coach that specializes in investments. Well, I knew that she was a financial guru through a women's prosperity network event where she discussed finances, work, empowering women and overall how to prosper in life, and she made me so curious about her that this podcast is to be primed by her. So she's someone I really look up to as well. So everyone, Catherine McLean. Hi Kat, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much as well for saying yes. You're such a blessing.
Thank you.
So, guys, many ladies now, particularly mothers, have had problems managing their finances because we were never taught this in school. And I think the gender pay gap is a very it's a very real issue needs to be addressed, and Catherine assists them in the area by offering financial coaching, a free investing masterclass, and very own trail to freedom program as well to help manage your money and other assets. This is why I was so curious about her, because she has been helping women in different areas of their lives. So, and I love helping women too. That's why this show is create. This show was created just like I learned by following in her footsteps. So I wanted you guys to learn from her too. So particularly in terms for finances. So Catherine, yeah, how did everything start? Like, what was your life then and now that you were convicted and committed to help women, especially in terms of finances?
Yeah, so I actually started investing 12 years ago when I was working in college. And my uncle is the one who had convinced me how important it was to start as early as possible because the earlier you start, the more your wealth has time to grow when you invest it in the stock market. So I was very fortunate enough to get uh, that learning from my uncle. So I learned most of what I teach others from my uncle. I also have a degree in finance, so I do have some investing class experience. And then I actually have built my own portfolios and have won some investing competitions along the way because I do know what works and what doesn't. But that along with me having to save 20% or more of my paycheck in order to have enough to invest was another big part of my financial journey to save more so that I could invest more. So that's why I'm so passionate about teaching women, because I've been able to grow significant wealth in that time period. And I want to help other women do the same.
Is that the reason why you leave your corporate job and decide to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I actually when I grew my money to multiple six figures, I got to a point where
Mhm.
I'm like, this is not my calling anymore. I didn't feel like my corporate job was my calling for a career. I wanted to quit my job to teach other women, but I also wanted to write a book. And that's actually in the process of coming out on manifestation. So I'm very excited about that. And I also have other passion projects that I am excited about working on that are more creative. So, in order to do that, having this money saved and set aside allowed me to quit my corporate job. And so, this is why I'm so passionate about helping other women do the same, especially if they're not uh, fulfilled in their job and they want to potentially be an entrepreneur and go that route.
You mentioned about the book. Like, is it like ongoing right now? You're still writing, or oh, okay. So
Three
is it okay to ask like what's all about?
Yeah, of course. So I'm three quarters of the way done, almost there, only a few more chapters. It's called Manifestation Made Simple: How to Change Your Subconscious Mind to Manifest More Money, Love, and Joy in Your Life. And it's really a step-by-step manual on how you can change the beliefs that you were given as a child that might be limiting you in what you want to go after. So that could be building more wealth. That could be your money beliefs that you took on as a child from your experiences from when you were very little. And they've shaped you in feeling like, oh, I'm not worthy of being a millionaire, or that makes me uncomfortable. I don't know what I would do with that money, or it's bad to have too much money. But in a lot of ways, money allows us to live our authentic lives and do what we've been called to do. So money really amplifies our own self. So if we're a good person, having more money will make us a good person amplified. Of course, the opposite is true, but that's really one of the main parts of the book that I talk about, changing your money beliefs. But I also talk about different ways that you can visualize and see your goals as achieved and feel them and experience them, so that when you go out into the world, you're going to start attracting those people that see the same things as you, that have the same viewpoints, that will bring you the opportunities you're looking for, because like people will attract like people. So it goes into a lot of different areas of how you can manifest a better life for yourself. So I'm very excited about that coming hopefully in definitely by the end of 2024. So I'm
So I
excited.
think it would be more like, series of our this conversation. So I will
It could
gonna
be,
look
absolutely.
how we're gonna look about that. So this question, the thing that you've mentioned, this leads to my second question. Like, how we can distinguish women from men when it comes to managing money. Like, are women is more disciplined than men in terms of handling money or not? Because you believe, that women need more understanding than men in terms of handling money, right?
Yes, so women in general have been taught from a young age to save their money, to be very good about not spending it or being too risky or being frivolous. But on the other hand, men were generally taught to go after their dreams, to make more money, to ask for the raise. They're usually the ones that are like taught to negotiate more than women, and as a result, women end up making less than men over their lifetime. They're not taught to make more money or grow their money faster. And this is why a significant wealth gap exists. It's because the difference in parenting has been but this is also a direct result of society and capitalism. So it kind of reinforces itself in the family system versus, the corporate world. It kind of goes hand in hand, but this is why there's such a huge disparity. And now I'm trying to help close that gap by giving women more education that men are, and they're already using to grow their wealth, while women are still left saving and they were never taught this. So a lot of women will feel guilty for not being good at this, but there's no reason to feel bad because we were never taught this in school, and
Hmm.
capitalism makes it very difficult for us to make more money and being able to grow your money faster than a traditional 401k, which is what a corporation gives you, because they're very limited investments with limited returns. So this is what I'm very passionate about helping women with.
So in this women, like, if our listeners right now, most of this are women. So if they ask you a question about why should I leave my job and start my own business? So how do you usually like respond for that question?
Yeah, so I would say if you feel like you are not fulfilled from your life, like if your job is not fulfilling for you, if you go to work every day longing for more, I would say to not completely quit your job without a safety net, of course, but I would say start a side hustle and try to save more money on the side if you want to do it that way, to have some extra income so that you can set that aside for investing or for putting it in a high yield savings account, which will give you a 4 to 5% return versus the national average of like 0.1%. So that will be a significant help for you to grow your money more so that you can eventually quit your job and do what you're passionate about. And so I would say baby steps right now, but being able to save more so that you can eventually switch over is what I would highly recommend, because my life fulfillment has been significantly increased since I left my job 2 years ago.
Is that what you did before? Like before you start your business, you still working in your corporate job before, you still save before you started really your own business. That's what you did before.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, I was saving like 20% of my paycheck, and that allowed me to save a good amount of wealth and invest that money. And that 10 years later, it allowed me to quit my job so that I could do what I wanted to do full time. And I actually started in finance. That was my first job. I switched over because the pay was not great at the company I was at. And I was
Mm-hmm.
definitely underpaid and overworked. And so I switched over to pharma, which had a great company culture and paid very well, but it wasn't a really industry I was passionate about. It was more the company culture and the socialization and the teamwork that I really enjoyed. But I knew that the work itself needed to be fulfilling for me. And I really, really felt more fulfilled creating something for myself that I could be proud of, because I always felt like I was doing things for other people. And so that longing was what prompted me to uh, go after me teaching women how to be better with finances and write my book, and of course many other things probably in the future. So that is my story up until now.
Wow. Um, w- um, this is would lead me to my next question. Like, what is money management for you? Like, why is important, and how can women start doing it?
Yeah, so money management can be overwhelming when you first think about it, but I would recommend first get very specific about what money you're bringing in and what money you're spending, and making sure that you're not either barely breaking even, or if you're going into debt where you're spending more than you're
Mm,
taking in. So, taking note of your income and then all of your expenses every month is what I would first recommend doing. And then once you understand where your money is currently going, that's where you can get specific on, okay, where am I going to limit myself and be more intentional about my spending? So that could be groceries, it could be eating out, it could be your car or your choice of transportation. It could be so many different things. Online shopping can be a very big one. Yes, that one was for me. And so knowing where you can definitely cut back will allow you to put more savings away for things that actually bring you joy and you really like, such as travel or going to nice restaurants. You can be very intentional about where do you cut back on things that aren't as important to you, and where can you use that money to make you happier, but also your future self much happier. And that's where investing comes in, where you're basically saying, hey, future self, this is for you. And for me, that was huge, because saying that, to my future self, oh, you can quit your job one day, was a really big benefit for me. So it really depends on your values and what is important to you. But that's what I would say for women to get started with managing their money.
I think is that most of the financial mistakes that most of the majority of Americans make. Is that what you mean? Like, they don't have a plan for their self, something like that.
So Usually it's called lifestyle creep. So people will tend to buy more house than they can afford or buy a nicer car than they can afford. And when I say afford, that's more than just breaking even. We don't want to break even, because if we just broke even every single month, what if we had an emergency and we had $1,000 expense of some kind where something breaks, if you're a homeowner, or if your dog gets very sick, or any kind of medical emergency could be very expensive. And so we definitely don't want to live equally to what we're bringing in, but live below enough where we can save that extra money and set that aside to either put in a high yield savings account or to invest for our future. I would say 5 or more years down the road.
So the best money management differs for every person, right? Some could adapt the 40-20-20 rule where others cannot. So others could like stick to and grow with the envelope system or with a money manager app on their phones while others could not. So for you, what's the best money discipline or habit you can give for women or in general?
Yeah, so I would say before anything else, money is very emotional for people, and it's more emotional than logical in the majority of cases. So I would say specifically when you're trying to decide what to spend money on, what do you find most joy in? What would you prioritize? What do you value
Mm.
most? Focus on those things for what you spend money on, but don't get too caught up in uh, keeping up with external like viewpoints where you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and you want to look better so that people think you look rich, but you're actually struggling
Hmm.
financially. That's a huge one. So, external validation is not the goal here. It's what you intrinsically believe will make you happier, and that could be, it could be clothes if you feel better looking nice, but it could also, you might want to reevaluate, okay, what am I doing for external validation, what am I doing just for myself? I think for me it would be travel would be an intrinsically valuable thing for me because it's an experience, and that would be different for other people. But understanding what really intrinsically brings you value and spending from an emotional standpoint and not spending too quickly. So if you're thinking about spending, I would recommend, if you can, especially if it's online, waiting 24 to 48 hours before you actually purchase, because it could just be an on the whim kind of purchase. You're like, oh, like this is really nice and great, but then one day later you'd be like, wait, why did I spend all this money on this thing that was kind of silly? Or be pressured into it for, if you see other people spending, your friends, the people around you, you might end up wanting to spend more just because the spending habits of your friends are more than you. And so definitely other people can affect this, especially when it comes to dining out, for example. So who you surround yourself with is very important, but also asserting financial boundaries is very important. If somebody wants to spend more than what you're comfortable with, it is important to say, hey, I'm actually really trying to be very mindful of my spending, and I want to really limit my eating out budget for the month. Is it okay if we do this alternative option? So that's one way that you can try to keep yourself on track to your spending goals and have a little bit of financial boundaries, especially if you haven't been doing this previously, because it might be a little bit difficult if you've been very, very prone to spending and then all of a sudden you're switching. But I think communication is the most important part here, to just have people understand that you're actually trying to save for your future and reach specific goals. And I think they would be very supportive of that if you just communicated in a good way and offer an alternative.
Well, for me as well, like for my experience as well, the best way to manage money is really, surrender every cent to God. Many may not know how to give tithes and offerings, but many also know how to give their tithes, their 10%, but do not know how to manage the remaining 90%. So whatever we receive, from God belongs to God. So that does not mean 10% is enough, to honor God. We have to honor God in everything we had, in the 100% we had. So I believe that why there's a lot of people, especially, Christians right there, like who still are financial troubles because they thought honoring God's ends of a tithing or giving the 10%. So I think we must really honor God in everything we do and everything we have, just like, what apostles said in First Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do everything for the glory of God. So we must spend our money in such way that this could, also benefit us and to benefit other people as well, but could also glorify God in His kingdom, through buying healthy foods, like, what that's what you told me earlier, right? Enough clubs and, subscription that are beneficial, beneficial, that do not make us obsessed, not hoarding, not impulsive buying, and not preparing for the future. So I think, that's for me, that's my also thing that I have experience with. So, and method of money, method of money management is beneficial as long as it is followed consistently. But how can women like consistently manage their money?
Yeah, so consistently, I would say to make a month to month budget tracking sheet, which I actually go through in my Trail to Freedom program. But
Mm,
month to month, first figure out what you're spending and what you're bringing in every month, and so you're tracking all of that. But you're also, even if you didn't necessarily spend something in a given month, if it's an annual expense, if it's an expense every 6 months, I would take that expense. For example, if it's an annual membership, for example, then you would take that a dollar amount, divide it by 12, and you get your monthly budget for that specific thing. So when you have a monthly amount set aside every month for an annual uh, expense, then you're not going to end up coming short when that subscription comes due and you're like, oh wait, like goes on the credit card, and then you hope you have enough. And then this is actually how credit card debt can happen if people don't uh, plan for those future large expenses. Another one could be car insurance. You pay a 6 month premium. Some people do every month, but um, there are a lot of different ways that you can make your spending more consistent by figuring out how much in a year do you spend on specific things, just even estimating, just so that you aren't short on money, and dividing that by 12 to get your monthly budget. And then once you have your specific expenses you're spending every month, then you can figure out, okay, what do I need to cut back on? And then set aside your budget for groceries or eating out or
mm,
online shopping for the future months. And by doing this, you can figure out, okay, how can I save more? So what can I cut back on? And how can I have more for investing? And if you really want to be strong in your resolve to actually fit it into your budget, then do that first. Take basically 20% of your take home pay and figure out, okay, how much am I going to try to fit into my budget, and put that in right away. And then figure out, okay, how much money do I have left? What am I going to spend it on? Where do I need to cut back? So if you kind of put that number in to begin with, then you can change your other spending habits in order to reach that specific number. So you could do it in a way where you can get really creative. And there are a lot of ways that you can save money, and there are plenty of ways that you can make more money. So it's very possible to set aside 20% of your paycheck, but a lot of people aren't used to it because they're very much used to spending within what they currently make. But there are so many different things that we spend money on that we might not actually fully value. And if other things bring us more joy and more happiness into our life, and we want to focus our spending on that. So it's really getting specific on what we can let go of, and where we can find cheaper alternatives. So I actually go through all of that in my program. But yeah, the main ones though, I mean, housing, of course, the big costs are the easiest, but they're the hardest to cut down on. If, housing and the car, could be education, groceries, eating out. Those are the big ones. And the experiences can be very expensive as well. So those are the main ones to cut back on. But utilities is another one that people, there are ways to cut down on electricity and heating, and it can be very expensive depending on where you live. So yeah, there are things that people might, oh, like that doesn't matter as much to me, so let's try to cut down on that more so that we can leave more room for saving and investing. So there are absolutely a lot of ways to do that.
Speaking about your program, like is Trail to Freedom program, right? So I just want to ask, like you have also masterclass. So what's the difference between the two? How how can we access that, and is it free or not? I believe masterclass is free, right? But why, and also why is it worth the investment subscription?
Yeah, so my free masterclass is for those who are pretty new. They aren't sure if the program would be right for them. It's really to get an idea of the things that I teach, the value that I create. It's an hour and a half long masterclass, and we can have a link down below if that works for them to check out.
Mm-mm.
And it's basically, it goes through how to get started investing, what things I look for. The program, though, is really a step-by-step walkthrough of all of the different investment accounts, and step-by-step, how do I open an investing account? How do I pick the right investments? What are the things that I look for, and how can I find the best returns for the lowest amount of risk? So I specifically go through that within my program, and then I teach you how to set up automatic investments so that you can set and forget your portfolio, because it's optimized for long-term growth. So these investments are going to be ones where we don't have to be constantly watching the market. We don't have to worry about what it's doing on a day-to-day basis, because it's proven time and time again over the past 10 to 15 years that it is consistently done amazing and outperformed the S&P 500. And so the program really walks you through step by step on what to look for and how to have the best portfolio that can give you significantly better returns than the market because of the right research. So that is my program. And
Mm.
I would say it's worth it because it really walks you through step by step how to have the best performing portfolio. The masterclass is really to get a taste of what that would be like. And it gives you some step-by-step instructions of what you can do, but you won't be taught how to actually find the best performing
Mm.
investments, but it'll show you what to look for in order to find some good investments. So it differs a little bit because the program, it goes through it in a much deeper way. But the masterclass gives you a good idea of what you could expect of what the program would be. So they're
But
both very valuable, but the program really is what's going to give you the most value for your money.
can we also meet and talk to other people in the class, in your master class and in your program? Can we interact?
Yeah. So yeah, my master class, it's going to be an interactive master class. So you put in the chat your thoughts, your questions. We're going to walk through certain things step by step, so people can share that, and I'll answer their questions. And then in the program comes with monthly group coaching calls as well as the recorded replays. So the group coaching calls, everyone can get to know each other, as well as the private Facebook group where people can post their money questions, their any struggles they're
Mm.
having, anything they're not sure about, so they can get support and build their community there. And yeah, those are basically the main ways that you can interact with the people for the
If
masterclass and program.
Got it. If there would be new people that would love to enroll in your program and they would ask like, testimonies, the results, do you provide that with your, previous students gained from joining the masterclass and Trail to Freedom program? Do you provide that?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the people who I've worked with that I've gone through my master class with, she was really blown away at how you could actually build $1 million wealth for as low as $64 a month
Wow.
in 25 years. So in 25 years, you could be a millionaire if you only invest $64 a month in high performing in ETFs, which is what I teach in the master class and my Trail to Freedom program in a much deeper way. And so it's really a deep dive of like people learn you don't actually have to have a whole lot of money to get started investing, and by having the right investments your wealth can grow significantly faster than the average person. So here's another example, like my one of my students had gone through my program, and she started investing at the beginning of this year, and her portfolio has so far grown 28% year to date, while the market has grown 17%. So she is ahead of the market, and she hasn't just invested in the high performing ETF. She's also done index funds. So even if you don't necessarily want to do all high performing ETFs, if you have a little bit more of a conservative perspective with the index funds, you can still be ahead by doing both, by having the index funds and the ETFs that I teach. You can still be ahead of the market and have really great returns doing it that way. And one other one I want to say is when I worked one-on-one with one of my students, she was currently only making about 7.5% annually on her investments. And after working with me and going through my ETF system, she, without adding any extra money, her portfolio grew 31% in 6
Wow.
months. 31%.
Yeah.
So it's been game changing for so many people just to find investments that nobody really talks about because they don't, the $1 million investors and financial advisors, they want you to pay them a fee,
Yes.
like to
Mm-mm.
actually like help you with this stuff. And at the same time, they have been trained in a way to kind of focus on the index funds because the ETFs, they're only going to mention them if you ask about them, because it's not actually a textbook thing. This is really an industry thing, because right now the technology industry and the semiconductor industries are the highest growth industries right now, as we can see from AI and all of the advancements that the tech companies are going through right now. And so that's why there's such high growth right now. And for the foreseeable future, I don't see anything changing. And so that's why this is such a big opportunity. But the traditional textbooks aren't going to tell you that because they don't know what's
Mm.
doing really well in the coming future. So this isn't really mainstream. It's really the niche investors that are talking about this. So that's also why I'm really passionate about this, because it's very hands-on experience for you to know what works and what doesn't. And because I've been investing for 12 years now, I actually do know what works and what doesn't through all of the recessions too, because these have all rebounded more than enough since, the 2022 recession and things like that, by holding for the long term. So that's really what I want women to know the most out of investing.
Can other nationalities can access that, especially here in Philippines? Like,
Yeah. So Fidelity Investments is what I go through and I personally invest with. And they do allow you to invest with Fidelity in the Philippines and other countries. Not every country, so you have to check. But
mm,
for most countries, they allow it. You also do have to keep in mind, if you do US investments, so the investments that I teach are US based, you will have to pay some additional fees if you were to sell those investments because it's international, and there's also an exchange fee of some kind because it's US dollars. So those are some things to keep in mind, as well as your own country's requirements for investing for tax purposes, whatever those rules are. And then your investing accounts for retirement will likely be very different than the US retirement account. So that's also something to keep in mind. But a traditional brokerage account is fine. You can invest in a brokerage account in the US and other countries. And so I do teach it that way. So it is actually possible for international students to learn this if they're okay with paying the extra fees, because
Mm.
the greater returns would offset those fees. So from my perspective, I think it would be worth it, but it is important to understand what are the rules for their country in terms of taxes and things like that. So I'm more familiar with the taxes in the US, but those are just some things that they would want to keep in mind.
Do you know how much additional fee do they need to pay, or is it depends?
It would depend on the country, and it really
Okay.
depends on the tax rules for your country. So, at least for a brokerage account in the US, if you sell any investments in your brokerage account, you would pay capital gains tax.
Mm.
And which is, the capital gains tax is basically, okay, if you invested $100 and you made $150, then you're paying tax on the $50 that you gained. So that's capital gains tax, and you're taxed like around 15% of that $50, and you're also taxed on dividends as well. And so there are like some tax things to keep in mind, and I do go through all of that in my program. For other countries, you just have to look up, oh, are there any additional taxes? Because in a lot of cases, there are certain countries in the United States that do not double tax you, which is amazing, because any US resident who wants to retire in another country would want to live there more than other countries because they wouldn't double tax. So there
Mm.
are certain countries that will not tax you on top of the US taxes. So that is something to keep in mind. I think Greece, France, those are the two that stand out to me that do, oh, Portugal, um, Costa Rica, those don't double tax, which is really great. So there are some countries that are very US investment friendly. So it really depends on where you live, and you just have to search that to figure that out.
Okay, guys, subscribes already to Catherine Trail to Freedom Program and Masterclass now. Whether you're in financial troubles or not right now, help yourself to prosper more through this program. If you can invest in game subscription or a Netflix subscription, why won't you try to invest in something that could help you build a long-term wealth? So I tell you guys, it's worth it for sure. After weeks, you will see yourself, change and your status better. It's not get quick money or quick rich scam. It's a real investment that guarantees your freedom from financial troubles and a good future for yourself and your family. You may see this masterclass in this website here below. Enroll there and enjoy the trail. Enjoy the journey as well. Right, Catherine?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So we're done, in with what to do, manage and save our money and with your passion projects. Now, what are the things we should avoid doing to save money? This is the last question.
Yeah, so the things we should avoid is really trying to be too cheap with our spending. So we don't want to buy too cheap of a car where it breaks down and causes more chaos and headache than necessary. We don't want to be too cheap on where we live, because we might not be as productive if we're not living in a place that allows us to be our best selves, and it might be too noisy. There's a lot of things that we don't want to skimp on our money. And so that's why understanding what you really value, what you want to prioritize, what's most important to you, is key, because this also goes for education, because many of us had gone through the traditional education system, and now we live in a world where we can learn everything we need to know about business online. So if you actually want to run your own business, I personally would say don't spend that $60,000 per year on that traditional education, because it won't give you the practical knowledge
Mm.
from an expert who's had firsthand experience of doing what you want to do and getting where you want to go. So really be mindful about, okay, question like, do I really need that certification in what I want to do and what I want to be for my career? And basically, don't do it for the external validation. Like I said, it's to basically say, are you actually going to use this for yourself? Is it going to be a value for your own advancement? And yeah, not skimping on what you value and what is important to you. So those are the biggest pitfalls with people being too cheap about where their money is going.
So, what a great lesson. Do you uphold in managing your finances that you want to leave our listeners so they will not go back to having financial troubles?
Yeah, so I would say be mindful about every time you make a purchase, saying, okay, what value is this going to bring me today? Am I doing it out of habit? Because that's actually very important, to catch yourself in your habits and question yourself. Be very mindful about every single credit card purchase, understanding where your money is going and saying, is this the best use of my money? Because many times you might say, actually, I would rather save this for my upcoming trip. I would rather save this for my future self. And so when you couch yourself in that habit, you want to start asking those questions to yourself. Can I use this money in a more productive way? And is this going to get me farther in my future than what I'm spending it on now? So having that mindful questioning constantly every time you spend will significantly lower your spending. I would say guaranteed.
Wow, that's a bank of wisdom, Catherine. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for gracing first episode of my show. I really learned a lot. Super. I will do my I will do my best to apply what you have told us, and of course, I will start as a sudden as today, right? So thank you so much, Catherine. I hope I can see you in the next episode. We will have more discussions. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
I hope that we don't just learn from this episode of money management. We need to apply. That's the most important. And of course, the episode with Catherine does not end here. Guess why? She still be with us in the next episode of our show, and we will tackle more about money management, and of course, let's take it to the next level where Catherine would tell us more about her specialty, in investment. So stay curious, stay inspired, and until next time, keep growing.